So it'll soon be time to say goodbye to some standard sets when we have our next standard rotation. Aether Revolt with the infamous Aetherborn, a crime lord in high stature as Gonti into Kaladesh with all its inventors and shiny contraptions. Hour of Devastation where gods reign supreme, the truly devastating Scarab God, bringing back zombies to swarm your opponents. And the deserts of Amonkhet, where a sun would approach twice if able. Now, here are my top 15 cards that are rotating out of standard. So, we're going to go with my top 15 cards now. Then these are just my personal choices. And what I would love you to do, every one of you in the comments, put which top 15 cards you think are rotating out of standard when we lose the Amonkhet, the Kaladesh, and so on. All these other, Hour of Devastation. It's all going. So, without further ado, let's start with my first card. So the first top card for me rotating out of standard will be Gifted Aetherborn. I talked about the Aetherborn in my intro. It's such a great card. 2-3 stats for double black mana. Really good. Fitted into, a lot of decks. Not just, aggro creature decks. This fitted into control decks when they were bringing it in from the sideboard. Away to battle red decks. Death Touch Lifelink was going to trade off with nearly everything in the format. Gifted Aetherborn is certainly a top card and will surely be missed. The next card on my list is a card that was used in so many decks, but a particular deck that used to utilise counters. It's Winding Constrictor. Winding Constrictor is a very nice card, same stats as a Gifted Aetherborn being 2-3, but this would cost black and a green. It had the abilities of counters. If they'd be placed on an artifact or creature you control, you'd be able to put those counters on +1. So if this was on the battlefield, it would obviously make your other creatures bigger. And if you would get one more counter, you would get +1. So this was used in energy decks. When people would gain energy, gaining that extra energy sometimes was really good. Energy was so big in standard, and Winding Constrictor was certainly a part of that because it was just such a really good creature. Talking of energy, this for me is one of my most favourite cards to rotate out of standard. It was such a pain to deal with every time it used to come down in these energy decks. Bristling Hydra, 2 double green, 4/3 stats, that's very nice as well. When it enters the battlefield though, it gets 3 energy, so at least for a turn this could always protect itself. You'd pay 3 energy, put a 1/1 counter on it, which stayed, obviously it's not till end of turn, and then it would gain hexproof to end of turn. Now, the great energy players who love playing that deck will obviously not always just have that 3 to use. They would have times 6, 9, and Bristling Hydra would be so hard to deal with. It literally was such a beater and would win games all by itself. Of course, the mono red decks, what are they going to miss? They are going to miss Hazoret the Fervent. Wow, 5/4, indestructible god from Amonkhet. It is so good. It had haste as well. And of course, when you're playing these red decks, you would literally drop in your hand, which was really good with this, because it couldn't attack or block unless you had 1 or fewer cards in your hand. Hazoret the Fervent was super hard to deal with. Cast Out would deal with it, a cane if you got it in your hand at the time. But this could come down so early sometimes. They'd have you on such a live total, and literally all it would take was 1 attack with Hazoret for you to be dead. Also, the other ability of the 2 in a red discard a card, Hazoret deals with 2 damage to each opponent. So you could keep, chucking your cards away, doing damage at the same time, and then making Hazoret able to attack and block. Hazoret, I won't miss it because I never really played with it, but I'm sure a lot of you will, and this will surely be missed when standard rotates. Staying on the red theme, Stormbreath Dragon, when that was in standard, was really good. Glorybringer didn't, probably wasn't, some people will say as good. I didn't think it was probably as good, but it was still one hell of a creature. Flying Haste, 4/4 for 5 mana, but when it attacked, you could exert it and do 4 damage to non-dragon creature an opponent controls. I mean, that was really good. That's, that gets rid of a hell of a lot of creatures in the current format as it is. You could just fly over. It doesn't have to. It could attack planeswalkers. You could take away a blocker and then still attack your opponent's planeswalkers or finish off a game. Glorybringer was a really sweet card. And, we got Demanding Dragon from M19, which I don't personally think is as good, but it will have the moment until we maybe see some, something better. It will have to take its place. But Glorybringer, aggro creature, really nice, will be missed as well. So now we're going to go for probably my favourite god that was printed, which is the Scarab God. Scarab God, you know, will see play because it's going to go into all your commander decks. It probably already is, to be honest. It's such a great commander and a build around card for EDH. But in standard, this for a time was the top card to have in there. 5/5 stats that was just impossible unless exile. You know, if you couldn't exile it, it was always going to come back to your opponent's hand or come back to your own hand. And you would just basically kill off their best creatures and then take them for yourself. They come back in as 4/4 zombies and have all the abilities that they originally had. And the ability of the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent would lose X life and you'd scry X where the amount of number of zombies you had. So the more you made, the powerfuler this card got. And 5/5 stats as well. It was a beater. Scarab God, I will miss you, Scarab God, but you will sit pretty in my commander deck. The last creature, yes, it would have to be blue because it was such a force and still is, obviously until rotation, a force in standard. It's Big Daddy Snap. It's Torrential Gearhulk. 5/6 with flash. Absolutely brilliant. Its nemesis was a Braid. A Braid could just come in and just kill it on 2 mana instant speed. But you still get the ability where you could cast an instant card from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. Really strong effect. Now obviously it's a lot, you know, it's a lot more expensive than Snapcaster Mage because that was 2 mana and could do instants or sorceries. But Torrential Gearhulk with the body of the 5/6 was really strong and could definitely beat down your opponents at the same time. And casting this with, say, a Glimmer of Genius where you're going to, you know, scry 2, get energy, draw cards. Such a strong effect for 6 mana. Torrential Gearhulk. I will try and fit you in my modern decks. Probably the creature I will miss most out of standard, indeed for me, is Torrential Gearhulk. So starting off with the spells now, and the first one for me is Fatal Push. Fatal Push saw play in different formats straight away, straight into modern. Amazing card. You know, destroying target creature with coverage in mana cost 2 or less. In standard it still hit some great cards, but in modern it hit, you know, some amazing cards. But standard, it was still an epic all-star and was, you know, an automatic 4-off straight away in most decks that covered black. The destroy target creature with mana cost 4 or less for 1 mana as well if a permanent left the battlefield. So, you know, if you had a creature die at end of turn, or you just did an attack basically to get rid of another creature that was, you know, harder to deal with, Fatal Push would deal with that. Absolutely brilliant. You know, this hope they replace something of this in when we get, you know, the new sets from Ravnica, you know, the Ravnica new sets that are going to be coming out. Fatal Push does need to be replaced for me, and it was just such an all-star. Next up is a Braid who would destroy the Torrential Gearhulk. It was my nemesis. Such a good card as well. The different abilities on it, we could do 3 damage to target creatures, so you could target the creatures like Gifted Aetherborns and at the same time hit a Torrential Gearhulk in those decks. A Braid, really strong card. Instant speed, 2 mana. Just the old ability of doing the 2 abilities make this such a great card for me, and I'm sure a lot of you will be missing a Braid. So coming up with the next card, rotating out of standard, which makes my top 15 list, is Heart of Kieran. It's the only vehicle that made it. Only costing 2 mana, potentially for a 4/4 where the crew was only 3. Flying, vigilant, absolutely amazing. You can get this turn down, turn 2. You'd be attacking, you know, turn 3 straight away with it. You could remove a loyalty counter from any planeswalker you control rather than paying its crew cost as well. So if you're playing in a, you know, a control-y sort of deck and you wanted this as maybe a beta, maybe some of you did that. But for me, I used it in mono green Stompy where I used it for, you know, help me with the flying aspect, and I won matches with this. I will miss Heart of Kieran, and I'm sure a lot of you will as well. The next card in the top 15 list that I will be missing from standard and rotating out there is an absolute epic card. Not only because it's blue, but it counters spells. You know I love that. It's Disallow. Now this does see play in other formats as well. What's special about this one is that it can counter target spell and activated ability or triggered ability. So when your opponents were, you know, going to ultimate their planeswalker, Chandra, when Chandra was going to be ultimated and it was just going to kill you on the spot, you could cast your Disallow. How amazing that would be. They would literally lose their planeswalker, lose their emblem, and then basically you just sit there laughing your head off. Well, maybe not too much, but Disallow for me was just one of the best counter spells that they printed for standard, and like I say, like I've been saying about all these cards, you're gonna be missed. The next card in the top 15 list that is rotating out of standard for me is Cast Out. Cast Out for its flash instant speed Enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent. You know, an enchantment that has flash that could also be used just for cycling and drawing a card. Great card, even, you know, for 4 mana, getting rid of an awkward planeswalker or an awkward creature. Really, really strong cast out. We're going to have Ixalan's Binding left in standard, which has its own separate ability. But you know, the flash enchantment for me was obviously quite a bit stronger. And cast out is moving on. I don't know if it sees much play in Modern at all. Maybe some of you do play it in Modern. I've not tried it in Modern. Maybe in some sort of prison deck it could go. But for standard, it is no more. So we're going down to the last 3 cards now of my top 15 cards, rotating out of standard. And don't forget, I really want to see your top 15 cards, so make sure you're hitting that in the comment section. But the next card on the list is the greatest card draw that I've seen in standard for quite some time. My personal choice and opinion, of course, which is Glimmer of Genius. Scry 2, which is important because you get to Scry 2 first, then draw 2 cards, and you get energy as well for 4 mana at instant speed. So in energy based decks this was really good. Like I said, in conjunction with Torrential Gearholes, this was absolutely amazing. To be able to scry 2 first and then draw the cards is a very, very powerful effect. Rightly costed for me at 4 mana, and I just hope, because we're really missing some decent card draws, Divination isn't quite going to cut it in the next sets. So let's hope where we get maybe either another Glimmer of Genius, reprint of it, or something very similar. So down to the last 2 cards, and the next one's a Planeswalker. Absolutely, probably one of the best Planeswalkers. Now we have Teferi that maybe in some opinions, people's opinions would take over from this, as in, the best Planeswalker we've had for a while. But Chandra Torch of Defiance comes in with 4 loyalty. It's got 4 ability. It's like the Jace the Mind Sculptor, ability of, type of Planeswalker that has multiple abilities, not just a standard 3. The +1 exile card of your library, you may cast it or do 2 damage. You can then ramp yourself up by adding an extra mana with the other +1. The -3, which was deal 4 damage to target creature, which hit a hell of a lot of creatures, Glory Bringers, everything like that. And the -7 basically for me is just win the game. Whenever you cast any spell, that emblem deals 5 damage to creature or player. So you can spread the love around with your damage. But, you're casting this, you have a couple of little cantrip spells, casting this, 5 damage, lightning strike, 8 damage. It was absolutely mental in standard Chandra. And Chandra for me, we got Teferi now, but it's a totally different colour. So people that played it might not play the Teferi. If you're just a lover of strong Planeswalkers, you're probably going to play that. But Chandra, it's in Modern already. You still get to play with it. Don't worry, it's not going to be one of those standard cards that just disappear from the face of the earth. So the last card for me, and it's not the number 1 card. Like I said, the list is not in any sort of order. I've just named the creatures, then the spells. And for me, Approach of the Second Sun, a 7 mana sorcery that was good in standard. 7 mana sorcery, remember that. It's just absolutely amazing. Approach of the Second Sun, I played it, for pretty much the whole of standard. Still played it last week, absolutely loved it. When you cast it from your hand, it doesn't matter if they counter it. It's just the cast trigger on the first one. But obviously, if they did counter it, then it wouldn't get shuffled back in at 7 from the top. But you'd gain 7 life. So when you've been taking the damage off the creatures, this card would really help you. It gain you that little bit of extra life. And by using cards like Glimmer of Genius and other ways, ops and stuff like that, you would get this back to your hand a lot quicker than you should. And then sometimes, if you were very lucky, like I've had on the odd occasion, you'd have the second one in your hand already. You'd cast it the next turn and just win the game. You felt like you were cheating when you were playing this card. That's how I personally felt. But at the end of the day, you say, people used to say, I hate the Approach of Second Sun, but you say, it's a 7 mana sorcery. It shouldn't be good, but it is. Approach of the Second Sun. God, I'm going to miss you, but I do play you in Modern just because I love playing the card. And it does sneak in some of my 1v1 Commander decks as well, because there's nothing better than winning that, that way in Commander, 1v1. If you could get it in, in multiplayer EDH, it'd be very fun, but I'm pretty sure once you cast it, the whole table would just, just riot and just attack you, and you'd probably die before you got the cards. But Approach for the Second Sun was such a fun card in standard, and I hope they pull something like this from the future sets, and that can be as good and as stupidly costed and still work out to be a brilliant card. So everyone, that was my top 15 cards rotating out of standard when we lose all these great sets. And we've had some good sets. We've had some, you know, some of the sets have been slightly worse. Hour of Devastation for me. Kaladesh was super strong. But, you know, these cards for me are going to be the top ones that are going to be missed out of standard. And like I said, please let me know which cards you think. Maybe you agree with some of mine or most of mine, or maybe you agree with none of mine. Maybe you're just happy just to see them all go. But what I want to know is what you know, what you think as well, because it really does appreciate it and it gets everyone chatting and have a little discussion about it as well, which is really good. Anyway, if you are new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. If you want to hit the like button, that supports the channel as well. It's a free way to do it. Anyway, guys, you take care and I'll see you on the next one.